Welcome back to the Postpartum Prep Podcast. Today I'm here with Gabrielle Ferrara. Gabrielle, can you just give us a little bit of intro into who you are and what you do?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here. So I kind of wear many hats, I feel like, but my current, my full-time job, I say, is being a mom. I'm a mom to a toddler. And I also am a nurture neuroscience practitioner. So I provide individual one-to-one sleep support for families and for families of babies ages 0 to 3 through the Nurture Neuroscience Protocol, which is a protocol established by Dr. Greer Kirschenbaum, who is the author of The Nurture Revolution. And the protocol is based in biologically normal sleep, infant mental health, attachment, responsiveness, with no sleep training. And it really focuses in on what our babies expect and what they need from us in terms of caregiver support in those early years as it pertains to sleep. So I have, that certification, as well as I am a mental health therapist, licensed therapist for moms, and I have specific training and education in perinatal mental health, maternal mental health. So those are kind of my many hats professionally,
Yeah.
and then of course bringing in my personal experience as a mom as well.
Wow, that's awesome. I feel like you kind of can see the from both sides for the mom
Mhm.
and the baby and
Yeah.
so today we're going to be talking more on the sleep side of things, although
Yep.
I know that actually we're going to also do a Q&A episode after this for anyone who's listening. It might already have been released, so you can check that out. Which is a little bit more on like the mother's mental health side of things. But for this episode, we're going to be talking about baby sleep. Now, for the pregnant moms who might be listening who just have absolutely no idea what to expect from baby sleep. They've heard maybe, babies don't sleep a lot, you'll be probably waking a lot at night, but maybe not seeing the full picture of things. Can you give us, like, maybe paint a picture, walk us through some of the common things that come up with baby sleep in the first few weeks or months or years?
Yeah, yeah. So there's definitely a lot of expectations out there about what we expect from babies, and a lot of those expectations are truly not based in biological normal infant sleep. So by that I mean we often expect that babies will want to sleep in their bassinet, that they'll want to sleep, separate from mom. And the truth is, it's not that simple. Some babies might be okay with that, but the vast majority will not be. And many babies want to stay close to mom and sleep near mom and even sleep on top of mom, touching her. And that is very normal and very expected from a biological standpoint. So, some of these reasons why moms and babies, well, because moms want to sleep close to their babies too, but why babies want to sleep close to mom is that human babies are born some of the most immature of all mammals. So what I mean by that is we are born essentially before we're ready, for lack of a better term. So if you think of like other mammals, they can kind of walk on their own when shortly after being born, they can eat on their own, all these types of things that human babies just can't do. So we are born needing to be close to mom for survival. So we need to be carried, we need to be fed, we need to be held. We can't do any of those things on our own when human babies are first born. So we go through a period of gestation outside the womb. So that term exterogestation is
Mhm.
gestation outside of the womb, where human babies are still developing and developing a lot, very quickly, very rapidly outside of the womb. So it is so normal and biologically expected for babies to want to be near their mom because they are still needing them and using mom for development and growth and
Mm.
um, you know, development.
Yeah. It's so I find that I love that term external gestation because it really just like brings home the fact that they are still so dependent on us, really.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
like, everything from, I mean, I'm sure heart rate, temperature.
Yep.
I know
Yep.
from your perspective, as a nurture neuroscience practitioner, is nervous system
Yep.
regulation. And
Yep.
do you think you can tell us a little bit more about like why babies like to sleep so close to mom,
Yeah.
exactly kind of how that works?
Yeah. Yeah. So from a science and evolution perspective, moms and babies are so in sync. They exist in conjunction with each other. Like you can't have mom without baby and you can't have baby without mom in the sense that they are so intricately linked
Mm.
in many different ways. So some of the ways you mentioned briefly before. So being close to mom helps regulate a baby's heart rate, temperature, respiration. Feeling mom breathe next to baby, feeling her heartbeat, her any other sounds that she might be making, like that helps regulate baby and help baby feel safe.
Mm.
And the other thing is closeness in terms of sleep. Facilitates frequent breastfeeding. So just naturally having mom close to baby, if mom is choosing to breastfeed, facilitates that frequent feeding, which helps regulate mom's milk supply, especially in those early days and early weeks, and really just solidifies that breastfeeding relationship. And that is a relationship that is very, very dependent on physical proximity, especially
Mm.
in those early weeks. So having baby sleep near mom, and having mom be very attuned to those hunger cues and those frequent feedings and responsive feedings helps regulate that milk supply. Um, and as you mentioned too, from a nervous system perspective, babies are again born very immature in the sense that their brains are also not developed. Babies are only born with 25% of their brain development having occurred already. So those early weeks and months and years even are so important for nervous system regulation because babies have to borrow our brains and our nervous systems as the adult responsive caregivers. So they have to have us nearby as the adult caregiver to help them regulate their own nervous system. So having mom nearby sends those safety cues and that's those security cues to baby saying, I'm safe, I'm here with mom, and she's protecting me and she's close to me. And I can feel safe and regulated and relaxed. And all
Mm.
of those cues help baby enter that stage of sleep and that stage of rest and security and calm. So mom is like the ultimate anchor for baby's nervous system and also physical regulation and homeostasis.
Wow. And I think I this is really interesting because usually usually when we think of baby sleep, the first thing most people think of is like a crib or a bassinet.
Yep.
That's like goes hand in hand with baby sleep. But what
Yeah.
we're really talking about right now is actually co-sleeping or bed
hmm
sharing. Am I
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
this is so different from probably what a lot of pregnant moms are actually hearing right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So I can talk a little bit about that. So co-sleeping, I want to give some definitions first too, because
Mm.
co-sleeping I think is misunderstood in terms of definition, both by parents and by like research alike too. So
Yeah.
we tend to talk about a lot of different things under the co-sleeping umbrella.
Hmm.
So co-sleeping is just in the simplest terms means baby is in the same room. Co-sleeping as an umbrella is like generally room sharing.
Okay.
Bed sharing is a subset of co-sleeping. So bed sharing is when baby is in the bed with you on, the same surface. Co-sleeping does get used generally to kind of mean bed sharing, and there's a, technicality there in terms of what exactly people mean sometimes, which gets complicated in the research because,
Mm.
and again, I don't want to get too much into nitty gritty stuff for pregnant moms who are just kind of entering this world, but co-sleeping often gets roped in with like sleeping with your baby on a recliner, on a couch, on like surfaces that aren't a bed. Those types of surfaces, which are not safe for sleeping, all get kind of put
Mm.
under the co-sleeping umbrella. So we want to be very conscious of our definition of co-sleeping. So we can get into it a little bit more, in our conversation, but just in terms of understanding what co-sleeping is, um, room sharing or having baby in the same room is co-sleeping, and so is bed sharing. And so is chest sleeping. So babies often want to be very close to us in those early days and sleep on our chest. And we might be told that there are not safe ways to do that or they're not good ways to do that, but there absolutely are. And it's very normal for baby to want to be physically on us,
Mm.
in addition to
Mm.
close to us. So,
Hmm.
yeah, when we're talking about keeping baby close in those early days and weeks, we really are talking about co sleeping in the sense that either baby is very, very close in the same room. So kind of like even like a sidecar crib situation or right next to the bed or physically in the bed with us.
Mm.
And that's where, those safe sleep guidelines really come into play. But I don't want to jump ahead. I want to make sure, I follow your lead
No,
too, but
I
I
think
would be happy to talk about
that's
that. Yeah.
that's great. Maybe we can talk because I think we've talked a little bit about, co-sleeping on like a sofa or a recliner or
Mhm.
something that's not safe.
Yeah.
Whereas I guess we're saying bed sharing could be safe if we're
Yeah.
following safety guidelines. Do you want to touch on those a little bit now?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
would love to. So I'll talk a little bit about kind of the safe way to bed share and also like the protective factors of that co-sleeping bed sharing
amazing.
relationship. So yeah, I think a lot of the messaging parents get around co-sleeping is to never do it, to never do it, never bring baby in the bed. It's always dangerous. It's never something you want to do. Keep them in a separate place in the crib, far away. Like basically telling moms that they are a danger to their babies just by
Mm,
existing,
hmm.
which is so far from the truth. Essentially, moms are protective towards their babies even in sleep. So research by Dr. James McKenna, Dr. Helen Ball show us that moms are protective for their babies even in that sleep state. So again, some of the protective factors of close sleeping are that regulating of milk supply, mom being very in tune with baby in terms of any distress. So there are documented cases of moms noticing that baby has a fever or baby is spitting up and or throwing up, in their sleep. Baby has stopped breathing in their sleep, and mom is right there attuned to that distress because of the co-sleeping
Mm,
setup. Um, Co-sleeping can also be protective against SIDS because mom is there again with her breathing, her heart rate, her movements that is keeping baby, those things are keeping baby regulated. So baby is very in tune with hearing mom's breathing, responding to mom's breathing, heartbeat, all of those things, which keeps baby in that light protective stage of sleep, and is protective against SIDS.
okay.
And the other thing too is that frequent touch and nervous system regulation is really, really positive for babies developing brains as well. Um, and then, we want to talk about mom's sleep and mom's mental health as well. That's important here too. I always tell moms, like, you are not, we don't want to push you to the wayside in this equation. Like, it's important to protect mom's mental health and mom's sleep as well.
Hmm.
But co-sleeping and bed sharing really does benefit mom's mental health and mom's sleep in many ways because it prevents mom from having to get up in the middle of the night and go across the hall to a different room or to be up and down, to be getting out of bed a lot. It can be really protective for moms to have baby right there nearby.
Hmm.
So those are some of like the protective factors against co-sleeping. And again, I want to go make sure I go back to how to do it safely because there are lots of ways to not do it safely. And we kind of get this messaging again that baby should never be brought into the bed, baby should never be near us when we're sleeping, which leads to moms and dads unfortunately falling asleep with baby in unsafe situations.
Hmm.
So a new mom is told, never bring baby into bed with you. So in an attempt to never bring baby into bed, mom might be dozing off with baby in a rocking chair or on a couch or in some other unsafe environment, even like sitting on the edge of the bed. I know lots of moms sometimes will sit on the edge of the bed to like keep themselves awake while they're holding baby. And that's a risk for mom falling asleep.
Can
And
I tell
again, in an
you,
unsafe, yeah,
I fell asleep holding my son bouncing up and down on a yoga ball. And
yeah,
I was literally asleep, sitting up,
yep,
bouncing, and suddenly I opened my eyes. I'm like, oh my gosh.
yep, yep. It happens. It happens so frequently, and it's because we have this abstinence-based messaging of like never bring baby into bed.
Mm.
But research has shown us
That
that
was before
falling
I
asleep.
started co-sleeping.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Research has shown us like falling asleep on a recliner, a couch, a yoga ball, is vast. Like those situations are so much more risky than safely co-sleeping in like an intentionally prepared bed.
Mm-hmm.
So we always want to have that bed set up. So, have that safe space set up. And again, I know you have another episode on bed sharing, but the Safe Sleep 7, just to briefly go over it, is the kind of the main way to approach this. So we want mom to be a non-smoker. sober, so no drinking, no drugs, no alcohol in the system, and breastfeeding is a protective factor for the Safe Sleep 7. We want baby to be healthy, full term, on their back and lightly dressed, so no swaddle, no heavy, sleep sack or anything like that. We want to make sure baby is not at risk of overheating, and we want to make sure that baby has their arms and legs free to move if needed and to signal to us if they need help.
Mm.
So we want to make sure those things are available to them. And then we want mom and baby to both be on a safe surface. So that is a firm mattress with no loose blankets, no duvet covers, no like extraneous, bedding, and no pillows that are accessible to baby. So by that I mean mom can have a pillow or two kind of behind her, but we want to make sure that that pillow is not at a risk to baby. So what moms typically instinctually do is get into what we call the cuddle curl position, which is the position on their side, with their arm kind of um, above baby, baby's at their breast, and they kind of instinctually get into this curl position, which is called the cuddle curl and is a very protective and biologically normal position for mom to be in. And again, those pillows and everything are not at risk to baby. So those things are kind of the basics to set up a safe co-sleeping environment, a safe bed sharing environment, I should say. And it is infinitely more protective and safe to have that set up intentionally prepared ahead of time than to fall asleep in one of those unsafe environments or to be haphazardly trying to set up a safe bed sharing environment like in the middle of the night in a sleep deprived state, like not knowing what to do. So I always tell parents, especially new parents, expecting parents, even if you don't have any intentions on co-sleeping, bed sharing, that's totally fine. That's, up to you. And you can, say that you don't have those intentions and that's okay. I would still have the information to know how to bed share safely and set up a safe bed sharing space anyway. Do it anyway, just have it there, have it as an option, make sure that you know how to do it and that you have it as an option in case you need it. And in case you have one of those nights where it's 3 a.m. and nobody slept and you want to bring baby into bed with you, you're not scrambling, you're not doing it in a way that's unsafe or chaotic, you are prepared.
I just want to echo Gabrielle here. I don't know if you've heard of that statistic from the Lullaby Trust about the 9 and 10 or
Yeah.
basically there's like research about how 90% and this is in the UK, but 90% of families end up co-sleeping even if
Yeah.
they
Mhm.
said they never would,
Yep.
which is a huge amount. And I like to say that statistic because I think sometimes parents hear like, oh yeah, like just in case, like I'm probably not gonna like even if
Yeah.
I thought I would, like I'm never gonna bring my baby in the bed. But actually
Yeah.
9 in 10 families do. And
Yeah.
I think people hear that statistic and they're like, that is way higher than I ever
Hmm.
expected it would be.
Yep. Yep.
So I just wanted to add that in to echo, like, absolutely
Yeah.
learning about safe bed sharing is essential.
Yeah. Another interesting statistic, I'm in the US and the American Academy of Pediatrics takes a very strict stance on no
Mm.
bed sharing.
Hmm.
But research has demonstrated there was a study that the majority of physicians actually bed share at some point too, or bring baby into bed. So even though the
Interesting.
American Academy of Pediatrics takes a very strict stance on like no bed
Mm.
sharing, they asked a group of physicians who are also parents, like, have you ever brought
Mm.
baby into bed with you? And the majority of them said yes. So
Yeah.
there's this disconnect between what is being put out there as like the best practice or like the standard of care and what is actually happening in reality. And I think that disconnect is putting parents at a disadvantage because they don't
Mm.
have the confidence or the tools to bed share safely, which ends up being the reality for, like you said, the majority of parents.
Yeah, the vast majority. Yeah.
Yeah. At some point, they may not do it every night, they may not do it for the whole night, but at some point, baby will,
Yeah.
the majority of parents bring baby into bed and they're told that they shouldn't be or that they don't know how to do it safely. And moms are left with this messaging again, like they're inherently a danger to their babies, which is just not true.
And as you kind of explained to us at the beginning of this episode, there's all these reasons why actually it can be protective in
Yep.
some
Yep.
cases. And for, are there any cases where babies should not be co-sleeping, where bed sharing would not be considered safe?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I think it's a very nuanced conversation.
Mm,
And I always recommend parents kind of make their own decisions with this, especially with things like, those first few months are, what word am I looking for? I don't want to say the most dangerous because I don't want to put like a scary lens on this, but babies are most vulnerable in those first couple of months. So we definitely want to be very deliberate about following the Safe Sleep 7 during those initial months. In terms of like the nuances with having like another parent in the bed, for example, or things like that, those things get a little bit more relax as baby gets older and more mobile and is not in that very vulnerable state. So I usually direct parents to James McKenna's work in his book Safe Infant Sleep because he talks a lot about those nuances between different sleeping arrangements and things like that. To kind of put it in plain terms, a mom should never be bed sharing if she's under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Safe um, sleep medications, like sleep medications that are going to impact her ability to respond to her baby or be aware of her baby. If mom is really, really sleep deprived, so if mom is like very, very sleep deprived and cannot be woken easily because of the sleep deprivation, bed sharing is not safe. If mom feels like she for any reason cannot respond to her baby, I would advise against bed sharing. If your mattress is not firm enough, that's another reason too. Especially in those early months, we want to have a very firm mattress. So those are kind
mm,
of the main contraindications. But there's lots of nuances to this, and there's lots of gaps in the research. So, for example,
right.
just because we don't have the research to say that, like, for example, preterm baby, though that there's a lot of nuance with that because we just don't have the research. It doesn't mean that
Mm,
there aren't safe ways to do it or there aren't benefits to doing it. We just don't have the research to support it, and that's kind of where we are in terms of learning more about co-sleeping and bed sharing and that mom-baby
mm,
dynamic.
mm. Yeah, because I know that's kind of one of the Safe Sleep 7 is about being healthy
Yeah,
and full term, but
full term.
there's also kind of those um s s I always it kind of like how you said it's up to every parent and kind of assessing like the
Yeah,
entire situation.
the
I
entire picture.
also
Yeah,
have you ever heard of the triple risk model?
yeah, for SIDS. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I kind of like to, I mean, just to a brief over that view of that is
Yeah.
just there's kind of different categories of like,
Yep.
some are to do with the baby, some are to do with the environment, some are to do
Yep.
with like the developmental stage baby is in. And it's kind of when all three of these are in a more higher
Yep.
risk, that's when kind of is considered like the most high risk, I guess.
Yep.
But
Yep.
otherwise, I think there is a lot. And I think talking to somebody like you, I'm guessing,
Mhm.
would be a
Mhm.
helpful thing for a parent who's not sure.
Yep.
Um, yeah.
Totally. Me, and there's lots of other co-sleeping, advocates and researchers out there too, that have
Mm,
really delved into this work. And at the end of the day, it comes down to making the most informed decision with the information we have. And
mm,
there's no cut and dry answer to some of these questions. It really is given the information we have and given the research that we have available, and also taking baby and family's individual needs into account, what is the best decision that we can make and how can we best
mm,
support everyone in the family, because there's lots of nuance to this conversation.
mhm. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think I'm sure that any moms listening now will be already starting to think about, hold on, maybe this isn't what I heard before, or
Hmm. Yeah.
and I think it is because, there is so much nuance to the conversation, and often
Yeah.
when we're talking to like every single parent, it does become like kind of this like blanket statement terminology,
Yeah.
whereas actually every single family is different and we can't even use this blanket statement
Yeah.
about everything. One of those blanket statements that I often hear is about, if you keep your baby so close to you, they'll become dependent on you, they'll want to
Mhm.
be with you all the time, they'll always want to be held. I was wondering if for a mom who might be hearing that at the moment, what would you say to her?
Yeah, that's a very pervasive myth, and it is a myth, is that keeping your baby close is going to harm them or harm their independence, and that is so far from the truth. We cannot spoil babies. There's no such thing as spoiling babies. They are not supposed to be independent. They are not supposed to be able to self-soothe or do things on their own. They physically can't. Their brains are not developed enough to have those pathways. Babies don't have the brain pathways required to self-soothe until age 3 at the very youngest. And that's just them starting to come online at that age. It's not like at age 3, they're suddenly able to self-soothe. It's just at age 3, the brain pathways for self-regulation and self-soothing start to come online and they continue to
Okay.
develop for the next couple of decades, really, like until
Yeah.
up until our 20s. That's when we fully have that fully
Yeah.
developed frontal lobe. And so it's a slow progression into being able to self-regulate. So babies don't know how to self-soothe. They can't do it. And we
Mm.
can't expect them to. And keeping your baby close and nurturing them and providing that co-regulation will never, ever have negative effects because it is so biologically woven into us and to our maternal instincts and what babies need, and also woven into the neuroscience of how babies' brains develop, which is regular, consistent, repeated co-regulation and nurture and responsiveness. And that creates the neural pathways in their brain for them to eventually be able to do it on their own through that repeated co-regulation.
Mm.
So, and the research, is starting to show this as well, is that there's benefits of co-sleeping. James McKenna, again, talks about it in his book a little bit. Some of the benefits of co-sleeping in the research in terms of creating adults that are confident and well adjusted and have these sort of secure attachments with their primary caregivers and all of that. And again, there are lots of different factors that go into that. We can't draw point A to point B that co-sleeping creates securely attached adults, but it certainly doesn't hurt. It certainly doesn't harm it. It doesn't create issues down the line in terms of independence or being able to regulate. It actually really helps, especially in those
Mm.
early formative years where the brain is developing and there's so much going on.
Oh, wow. So it's, not just can be like helpful in the present for supporting your baby, but even
Mhm. Yep.
lifelong.
Yep.
Can we go back to that? I just wanted to touch on self-soothing a lot because this is a question
Mhm.
that I get a lot from new moms is about, they've heard that they should leave their baby,
Yeah.
their baby needs to learn how to self-soothe. They need, and
Yeah.
um, that the only way for them to learn to self-soothe is going to be leaving them to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
Whereas what you're saying is completely the opposite, right? About
Yeah.
how that the more we support them and help them. Can you just kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah. Yeah.
clarify that part a little bit for a mom who might
Yes,
have heard
definitely.
that myth? Yeah.
Yes. So right from the jump, the term self-soothing has been wildly misconstrued from the research. So even the scientist, the researcher who initially kind of coined the term, his name is Thomas Anders. He has since come out and basically said, like, I didn't mean for the term to become what it's become. He did research on babies and was trying to differentiate between babies who signal and babies who don't signal. So some babies wake up well, first of all babies enter a lighter stage of sleep in between sleep cycles. So a sleep cycle for a baby is roughly 45 to 60 minutes or so in those early months and years. So babies enter a light stage of sleep in between those sleep cycles where they do kind of like a needs check. So they take in cues from their internal environment and their external environment and kind of assess, is there anything I need right now? Does anything feel uncomfortable? Is anything bothering me? And that can range from like gas and reflux to I just want to know where mom is and I just need to snuggle and I just need to like know that she's still nearby. So it can be a wide
Reminds
range
me of
of,
me when I wake up and I'm wondering where my husband is and I
yeah,
want to come
exactly.
over.
Well, that's a great point because adults also do a needs check in between sleep cycles. We
Okay.
don't notice
I
it
was wondering.
because yeah, we do it too. And it could be, yes, you try to see where your husband is, you notice you have to go to the bathroom, you need a drink of water, whatever it is. We do that as adults too. We just don't really register it anymore
Mm.
because we're older and more developed. But babies are very what word am I looking for? Like sensitive to that needs check. So if there's anything amiss, like they first of all, they can't deal with it themselves. They can't go get a drink of water. They can't like, recognize that mom is still there. She's just in the next room. They can't do any of that. So what Thomas Anders was trying to research was are there babies that are signalers and non-signalers. So there are some babies just based on temperament that will wake up, do that kind of needs check, be like, I'm good, I'm going to go back to sleep by myself. And they are non-signalers. But there are lots of babies who are signalers, and those are the babies that wake up and signal. They cry, they call out, they need help from mom or dad or whoever to meet some of their needs. And the important thing here too is to differentiate between self-soothing and self-settling. So self-soothing has taken on this like definition of being able to regulate from a state of distress. So a baby who is crying and screaming and very upset, clearly distressed, we're told that they should be able to deal with that by themselves. They should be able to come down from a place of distress by themselves and self-soothe. And as I mentioned before, they cannot do that. They don't have the brain pathways to do that. They can't do that. And leaving them to cry or figure it out is not going to teach them how to do that because their brains can't do that yet. The alternative is what's called self-settling, which is babies being able to put themselves back to sleep, but not from a place of distress. This is a baby who wakes up and kind of is like happy and kind of looks around and is like, okay, I'm still here. Like I'm in my room, like whatever, I'm good. I'm going to go back to sleep. They're not crying. They're not distressed. They're not needing anything. They're not signaling. They're able to self-settle from a place of calm and go back to sleep. A baby who is signaling, crying, distressed, needing that co-regulation is not able to self-soothe and put themselves back to sleep. They need us and they need that support. So that whole definition of self-soothing and the language around it and the life of its own that it's kind of taken on has been very, very detrimental, I think, to parents trying to understand this whole thing because we're told, like you said, that babies should be able to sleep independently, that they should be able to put themselves back to sleep and try them, cry it out and figure it out and learn it on their own how to self-soothe. And that's just not the reality. And it's really, really detrimental, I think, to parents to think that that's the only way that they can get sleep or that it's something they have to do. I think a lot of parents see it as sort of something they have to do because it's like this rite of passage. Sleep training and teaching your baby how to sleep and all of that has become a really big buzzword, and it's just not based in any sort of reality, and it's not necessary. It's not something parents have to
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I can attest to that as
do.
how old is your little one?
He just turned 2. He just turned
Okay.
2.
I
Yeah.
mean, I kind of definitely found by two, sleep
Hmm.
was vastly different than it was in
Hmm.
the earlier
Yeah.
years. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I
Um,
mean, my son's journey has been a little unique because he's had some medical stuff, which is another thing, that I'll touch on briefly in terms of sleep training is sleep training tends to ignore any potential extenuating circumstances that might be going on with babies. So if they have like reflux or oral ties or other things that can disrupt sleep, if we're just letting them figure it out alone, we are quieting those signals that something else might be going on with them.
mm,
And that's not fair to the baby. It's not safe for the baby. It could actually be
mm,
very dangerous,
mm,
especially if they have things going on that are concerns medically, and we're just like ignoring them or not
mm,
pertaining, not responding to those needs. So my son had some of those things, which is why he's,
mm,
continues to be kind of a frequent waker.
mm,
And that's part of the picture too, is like sleep training doesn't get rid of those underlying needs. It just quiets the signaling. And
mm,
that is problematic in lots of ways. And I think
mm,
something that more parents should be aware of and have that informed consent about is like just because your baby stops signaling does not mean that they don't need you anymore, that their needs have been met.
mm, mm. And in many cases it can be really normal that babies would
Yeah.
wake up and need that
Yep.
support. And then I think it's like figuring out, is this just normal waking or is this
Yeah.
kind of
Right.
something more? And there's a
Yep.
real trouble. I mean, I don't know exactly your situation, but I know for some families they will go to the doctor and say like, my baby's waking. I don't know if this is normal.
Yeah.
And rather than kind of investigating, like to decide whether this is normal, the doctor will just go straight to like, oh, well, you just need to sleep train. And I think
Yep.
this isn't as common now as it used to be, but I know it's
Hmm.
still for
Yeah.
some
Yeah,
people.
that was my experience. It's
Yeah.
been my experience with my son.
Really?
And
Mm.
yes, yes, many on many occasions. And it's problematic in a couple ways. One is it's obviously doing a disservice to the baby because they might have something going on that needs medical support or intervention or they just might be a normal baby that needs support overnight and comfort
Mm.
and co-regulation. And they're being dismissed or being told parents are being told to respond to them in a way that's inappropriate. So that's the first part is it does a disservice to the baby. And the other thing is it does a huge disservice to the mom because mom is essentially being told this is your fault. Like your baby is waking so much because you're not doing the right
Yeah.
thing or
Yeah.
you're not strong enough to ignore their cries or sleep train them or teach them how to sleep independently. Like
Mm.
basically telling mom this is your fault and your instincts are wrong. And that is so inappropriate and so problematic and does a huge disservice to moms and makes mom feel horrible. So there's like it's problematic on lots of fronts.
So you're then going on to train as a neuroscience practitioner. Is
Yep.
that was that kind of what's led you into this?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was my own son's experience for sure because yeah, he has had trouble with sleep for various reasons pretty much since he was born. And I kind of reached that 4 month mark where lots of parents get the message to sleep train. They hear, the 4 month progression. Oh, you have to sleep train. You have to just teach them how to sleep. 4 months is a pivotal point, I think, for lots of parents in terms of what direction they're going to go in with their baby sleep. And I kind of got to that point with my son and happened to come across Dr. Greer Kirschenbaum's book, like right at that point, which I think was like a sign from above.
That's
That I found her book at
awesome.
that moment.
Because I went Googling and
Yeah.
ended up on the different side of the internet.
Yep. 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 Yes, I think it's very easy to end up on the other side of the internet at that point, especially.
Mm.
And I just happened to, I remember actually someone had posted about Greer's book in like I was in one of those like due date groups, like,
Okay.
December 2023 babies or whatever. And someone had posted about sleep and there was tons of comments about sleep training. And one person mentioned, I would like check out Greer Kirschenbaum's book, The Nurture Revolution. And I was like, that sounds interesting. And I went back and I looked at it and I was like, this sounds like something I want to read.
Yeah.
Um, so I happened to come across her book just at that point, and it set me on the path that I'm on now, both personally with my son and professionally. So yeah, I
Mm.
think it's really crazy how like one kind of pivotal moment can set you on your path,
Yeah.
professionally and personally. Yeah.
I'm curious, like, when you're now dealing with, um, medical
Yeah.
dismissive kind of situations, does it at least kind of give you, you have that kind of inner confidence because of
Yeah.
your training. And
Yeah.
I found this has been like a really common theme with people that I know who work in baby sleep is like often we're doing far more extensive training in sleep
Yep.
than our pediatricians have ever
Yes.
had done themselves. And it's like good that we have the ability to have the like navigate this landscape, like
Yeah.
understand what's kind of going on. But I think for the moms who we shouldn't have to get a professional qualification ourselves to be able to get
Yes.
infant sleep.
Totally.
But at least now it means that like you have this training, so now you hopefully moms will know that they can come to you for support. And also, I
Absolutely.
think there are also great pediatricians that also
Yeah, I was gonna say
have
that.
more
Yeah.
awareness. I don't want to like put this fear into like, about it, but
Well,
I
that,
guess
yes, there, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say maybe if you have any tips for like a mom who what are there any like signs she should be looking for when she does want to if she does want to talk to somebody about sleep about like what, whether it's evidence-based or not?
Yeah. Yeah. So again, just go back to your point about like the pediatricians too, is yes, you're right. There are some good pediatricians out there. And
Mm,
at the end of the day, it's a systemic issue. Like pediatricians just they don't get the training in school
yeah.
on things like lactation and sleep.
Yeah.
And but they're expected to know everything. And
Mm.
they're not taught everything. So
Mhm.
it's, I want to give pediatricians like compassion where possible
Yeah.
too, because they're kind of expected to know everything. Like a parent comes to them and is like ask them questions about
Yeah.
every area of infant development, and they don't get that education. They don't get
Yeah.
the right education on, breastfeeding and sleep and these types of things. But they're
Unless they
expected to
seek
know
it out
everything.
themselves.
Correct. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like I remember my son's first pediatrician. We actually moved shortly after he was born. But his very first pediatrician when he was a newborn was also an IBCLC. And in
Mm.
hindsight, like I think that's a really great overlap of
Hmm.
education to have is
Yeah.
the pediatrician education. She was an MD, but she also was an IBCLC, and so she was able to help with like kind of the nuances of early breastfeeding and sleep, and helping my supply regulate and all of that, with also the medical side of things.
Right.
So that's a good tip. In terms of tips, I think if you're looking for a pediatrician, if possible, finding one that does have additional certifications and education in things like breastfeeding, sleep, even like doula support, like they have doula training or certifications can be really beneficial. It's kind of that overlap because I think a lot of things get lost in the medical system, and they, like you said, they need to seek out additional trainings to get the full picture of
Mm.
baby sleep and development.
Mm. And I think like unless you've kind of been through it yourself, you don't always have that motivation to get the extra training. But
Yeah, right.
it's,
Totally.
it shouldn't be that way, obviously. And I love
Yeah.
that you bring up the systemic, the wider picture of it all, because I always
Yeah.
do like to remind parents of this kind of the wider context that we're in
Yeah.
when it comes to everything to do with moms and babies. And um, it's often about support and it's about
Yeah.
the wider systems of support as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've talked about a few baby sleep myths. I was wondering if there were any others that you wanted to touch on.
Yeah. Let me think. So a big one is also drowsy but awake. That's one that tends to come up a lot for new parents is
Mm,
this idea of putting your baby down drowsy but awake or not supporting them to sleep. Like feeding to sleep is a bad habit, rocking to sleep is a bad habit. All these like
mm,
bad habits
mm,
that come up in the baby sleep world are myths.
mm,
And I would not put too much energy into them because they are not based in reality or biological norms. Feeding to sleep, supporting to sleep, helping baby enter that safe sleep state is very normal. And
mm,
I'm here to tell you to give you like full permission to do all of those things. Because I come across a lot of parents who will be like, is it okay that like I'm rocking my baby to sleep or that I'm nursing them to sleep? Like I've been
mm,
told I shouldn't be doing that. And when I tell them like, yes, you should be doing that and you can do that, is like such this wave of relief because it really is the easiest way. And I
mm,
think a lot of times we tend to make baby sleep harder than it needs to be
mhm,
for really no reason other
mhm,
than like fear of bad habits, which is like not a thing.
mhm,
Um, Fear of them not being able to be independent down the line, which again is like not a thing. There's lots of myths too about like, oh, if you co-sleep or support your baby to sleep now, like they're going to be in your bed until they're 18 or they're go to college or until they get married or whatever these
mhm.
types of like extremes are. And the truth is like none of that is true.
No.
Like I've never
Yeah.
met a baby, an 18-year-old or an adult who's still like being breastfed to sleep in their mom's bed. Like that just like doesn't happen. Because babies mature and develop
Mm,
and in their own time will develop this independence.
mm,
So I think that's a big one, that those myths. Sleeping through the night is also a myth that I think comes up a lot. Babies are not supposed to sleep through the night. It's normal for night wakings to happen definitely very early on, for the first 3 years, essentially, and sometimes even beyond is normal too. It's normal for babies and young children to need our support overnight. So sleeping through the night is not something to strive for. It's not something to force on your baby. It's not something that is appropriate. And it's not something you need to expect. And I think just having that mindset going into it can be helpful for parents to like know that it's not something that's um, expected or something that they need to force or try to achieve. It's not like a milestone that they need to meet. Um,
mm.
I'm trying to think what other myths.
One thing that I was just
Yeah.
thinking about is maybe our babies aren't going to be sleeping through the night, but that can also be like sometimes challenging for us. But that's why a
Yeah.
lot of us turn to co-sleeping because
Yep.
it's the easiest way.
Yep.
Um, but one thing that often people will wonder about is the impact on your marriage of
Hmm.
co-sleeping. Is that
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
you might be able
Yeah.
to talk about a bit?
Yeah. And I think that that's an interesting point because I'm gonna be honest, I see both sides of it. And I've seen, I have been co-sleeping with my son for a while now. And as our situation is right now, I sleep with my son in his room and my husband sleeps separately in
Same.
our bedroom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how we do it too.
And yeah, and I understand the concern. Like I miss my husband, I miss sleeping with him. I get the concern about that. And I think sometimes it's helpful to remember the temporariness of this on like
Mm.
on the big scale of things is it really is a small blip on the radar in terms of your marriage, your child's life, the grand scheme of things. It feels hard right now, and it is hard right now, but it's not going to be this way forever. And it is protective of your child's mental health and your mental health as a mom long term. And I think that those types of things can be helpful reminders because I'm not going to sit here and say, like, oh yeah, like sleeping with my son while my husband sleeps in another room has been great for our marriage because it's not like it's hard. It's not
Mm.
what I envisioned. But it also is what our son needs right now, and we're aligned on that front, and we know that
Mm.
like it's what he needs and what we have chosen to do to support him, and it's temporary.
Mm.
And I think it's kind of just adjusting your mindset around that is the biggest
Mm.
thing, and finding other ways to connect and finding other
Mm.
ways to be present um, with your partner as much as
Mm.
possible, and also using that time as like family time. Like for example, my son goes to sleep pretty late right now just because of his nap and how old he is and everything like that. So we have a lot of like late nights where we're all awake as a family till like probably
Mm.
like 10 p.m. And then
Mm.
I go to sleep with my son and my husband goes to sleep. So just like rewriting the script around what our time together looks like is like we tried to readjust like okay we have longer evenings together as a family, like how can we spend that time together
Mm.
versus like oh my gosh like I can't believe he's still awake, like
Mm.
we're gonna have no adult time, we're gonna have no time like to do our own thing, like it's just accepting it is what it is, like
Yeah.
my son's not gonna go to sleep at 7 p.m. and that
No.
is what it is right now.
Yeah.
So just adjusting that mindset.
Out of curiosity, because we went through it, it was only about it was between like when my son was really coming up to dropping his nap
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and when he actually dropped his nap. It was like maybe 3 months we had where he was doing like it started like 9 p.m. bedtime, then it was like
Yep.
10, and then it was like 11,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, you need to drop this nap.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious, kind of what do you guys do in those late
Yeah.
evenings?
Yeah, it's hard, and I want to be honest in the sense that like I'm not perfect with my son's sleep. So like I know all the good ways to like optimize infant sleep, but I'm also human. So like for example, sometimes we do have the TV on at night, like things like that, right?
Hmm.
Like I know that screen exposure is probably not the best for him going into sleep, and I try to limit it, but I'm also a human, and so sometimes we have the TV on in
Hmm.
the background. Sometimes we're playing in his room where we're just like playing games or playing with his toys or reading books or honestly going outside. Like we live in
Hmm.
Florida, so it's still pretty warm like even at night,
Hmm.
so we'll go outside and
Yeah.
look at like some people's Christmas decorations or things
Oh
like that.
yeah. That's so
Just
nice.
like yeah, or just hanging out, like trying to use the time the best we can,
Hmm.
while also recognizing that like I said, we're human, we're not perfect. I'm not perfect
Yeah.
with my son's sleep. I try to do the best I can, but
Yeah.
there are certain things that it's a give and take.
Yeah, and I think that's so important actually for the pregnant moms listening to hear because
Yeah.
I know one of the things that I struggled with actually like the most and really impacted my mental health was like before I had my baby, I was like I just had such a vision of this like I'm gonna do everything absolutely perfectly to the T,
Yep. Yep.
and then I will be the best mom and my baby's gonna be the
Yep.
best baby because he'll have been raised in the best way. Like
Yep. Yep.
obviously. lots of like I didn't realize that the best way also is like different for every
Yeah.
single family, but also
Yeah.
it was a real like unlearning for me of like actually there I mean just that in itself there is no best way and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
often just about kind of balancing the needs of lots of different people and like allowing yourself to do what feels best for
Yeah.
you in the situation you're in. Actually, that was what like really improved my mental health
Yeah.
rather than
Right.
trying to like force me and my baby into these expectations I had of like what a good mom looks like.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Mhm. I
Absolutely.
know
Yeah,
we're
because
actually,
I go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, because going back to what I said before too, and especially with my Mac background in like maternal mental health, is I think
Mm,
that there's
yeah.
a balance. And I think there are certain things where, like, let's just face it, as moms, we need a minute to breathe sometimes. So like certain things are flexible, and we need to, like you said, not strive to be perfect because we're not going to be
Mm,
perfect. And I know a lot of things about infant sleep, and I know what optimizes it. I know what helps it, be successful, quote unquote successful. But I'm not going to do all those things perfectly, and I don't expect the moms I work with to do those things perfectly because we
yeah.
are living unique lives, and our
Yeah.
babies are unique, and our needs are unique, and we have to do the best we can with the information we have, and that's all we can do.
Yeah. Yeah. I also asked about kind of what you did in the evening because I think it is interesting. We often have like it's a very cultural assumption that our babies go to bed at like
Yeah,
between like, around seven or
yeah.
ish. And that's just such a like cultural assumption, but
Mhm.
actually
Yep.
all around the world, babies don't go to
Yeah.
bed at seven and
Yeah.
it's really
That's
normal
actually quite
for,
early for other parts of the world. Yeah.
yeah. Like,
Yeah.
later bedtimes are very normal, especially when your babies are still napping and stuff.
Yeah. Totally.
Um,
Totally.
we're kind of coming up towards the end of the episode now, so I just wanted to check if there was anything else that you wanted to touch on before we wrap up.
Yeah. I don't think so. I think we kind of talked about lots of stuff, right? Yeah, I can't think of
Yeah, this
anything that we
was an
didn't.
amazing episode. I think I really love how we touched on like what's normal for baby
Yeah.
sleep, why they want to sleep close to their moms. You gave us some really great tips about safe baby sleep and exploring myths. Um, I always like to ask before we end, if you could go back to your pregnant self, pregnant with your first child, and just give her some advice from you now, what would you
Yeah.
tell her?
It's a good question. I was actually thinking about this the other day because my son just turned 2, like the other day. His birthday was this week. And
Oh,
I was thinking like,
congratulations.
thank you. So I was thinking like, where was I 2 years ago today? Like when he was a newborn. And
Um,
I remember we had a really, really tough night. The first night we came home from the hospital, my son would not be put down. Like he wanted to breastfeed and be on my chest and sleep with me like the
mhm.
entire night. And I remember being up the entire night, like crying because I was like, he won't let me put him down. I don't know what to do. And this was before I knew about bed sharing and co-sleeping and everything that I know now. And I wish that I had known when he was born, like I said, how to set up the bed safely for bed sharing, how to like safely keep him close, how to safely have him sleep on my chest, which like I know how to do now, and all these things because that first night home from the hospital was like still in my memory as like a very, very challenging night, like probably one of the hardest nights of my motherhood. And I think just knowing what I know now about that it was normal for him to want to be close to me, that it was normal for him to want to be on top of me and be feeding frequently and all of those things, and knowing how to like safely navigate that would have been life changing in like that first night home from the hospital
Yeah,
and some of the
yeah,
subsequent nights.
yeah,
So that's kind of what's on my brain right now, just because it was literally like the 2 year anniversary of
yeah,
that, and I feel
yeah.
like my body still kind of remembers
Oh yeah,
those early nights, especially that very first night home from the hospital, because I just remember, and I was like fighting to stay awake. I was like dozing off while I was holding him, like lots of things that were not safe and not helpful for me and my mental health early postpartum. And I think just knowing how to safely bed share and keep him close to me while also trying to get some rest myself would have been life changing.
absolutely. I think that first night home from I am a postpartum doula. I don't know if
Yeah.
yeah. And I used to offer like virtual overnight support for that
Hmm. Hmm.
through the whole first night home from hospital
Okay.
because I
Yep.
had
That.
like a really similar experience and
Yeah.
it's you're in the hospital and you have like hopefully you have support in the hospital and then you get home and I was just like, what
Yeah.
am I doing?
Well, and honestly, my son slept fine in the bassinet in the hospital. And that's, I know this is normal, like
Yeah.
the second night
I
syndrome
was
or
gonna
third night
ask, was
syndrome.
this the second
Yeah.
night?
It was technically the third night.
But it
But
can sometimes be like second or third
yeah.
night, and often
Yeah.
depending like what time of day they were born and stuff. So
Right. So I like labored. So I went into labor at like 11 p.m. and I labored like all. So I first of all I went into motherhood in a sleep debt because I labored like
yeah,
all night and didn't sleep.
same.
So and then my son was born the following morning at like 8 a.m. So I lost a whole night of sleep before he was
Yeah,
even born because I
yeah,
was in labor. And then we spent 2 nights in the hospital. So and he slept like in the bassinet. Honestly, he slept okay those first 2 nights, and it was his third night, our first night home,
yeah.
that was like the most challenging. Yeah.
And even in the hospital, I was just thinking about, I don't know about you, but like, there's people like coming in to do
Yeah.
checks
Yep.
constantly. So like
Constantly.
in the hospital, you end up, I think, feeling like the sleep deprivation can add up
Yeah,
just from that because
totally.
like you don't get
Totally.
those long chunks. Yeah.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. So yeah, I think just knowing what to
Yeah.
do
And
those
just
first nights
imagine
coming
the
home.
difference now, like after listening to
Yeah.
this episode, hopefully if you're pregnant, you're gonna go. I'll link, by the way, all of the safety guidelines that
Yes.
we've talked about are gonna
Yes.
be linked in the show notes for all the pregnant
Yes.
moms listening. So go head over there. Um, and learn about these safety guidelines because if you do happen to be in a similar situation, your second night, third night, and you're
Yeah.
completely exhausted, you just need to lie down and go to sleep, and your
Yeah.
baby does not want to be apart from you, you'll already
Yeah.
have these safety tips in your pocket. You'll know exactly what to do. Hopefully, your bed will already have been set up for
Yes.
safe bed sharing.
Exactly. Yep.
The there is, I don't know if you know anywhere else. The only place I've actually seen bed sharing safety guidelines for while you're still in hospital is in Sweet Sleep by La Leche League.
Uh-huh. Yes.
They have
Yeah,
some in
that's where I've seen
there.
it too. Yep.
That's a really that's also I don't know if we mentioned how like the Safe Sleep 7, that's kind of like La Leche
The
League.
Leche. Yep.
Yeah. So that book Sweet Sleep kind of goes all it really breaks down a lot of the ins
Yep.
and outs of safe bed sharing.
Yep. That's a
Um
great book too. Hmm.
were there any, I know you had some other resources. Did you want to mention
Yeah.
any
So
of your
I
other
just I kind of listed
resources?
my favorite book. So I one
Hmm.
my favorite book is Safe Infant Sleep by Dr. James McKenna. So that's this one, Safe Infant Sleep by Dr. James McKenna. This is a great book. The other one is How Babies Sleep by Dr. Helen Ball. She's a great resource as well. The Nurture Revolution by Dr. Greer Kirschenbaum. And my favorite resource for all things co-sleeping is Tiffany at co-sleepy. That's her Instagram handle. And she has lots of free information as well as guides for purchase that I can send you the links to so you can put them in the show notes. But her chest sleeping guide has been a lifesaver for me. And I think that's something we touched on briefly here, but chest sleeping, which is basically, having your baby sleep on your chest while you are also able to sleep, has been life changing for me because my son only
Hmm.
wanted to sleep on my chest. And that was really, really important information for me to have. So I definitely recommend having that information as well.
Awesome. So if anybody is interested in working with you, or what kind of
Yeah.
support do you offer and where can they find you?
Yeah, so I offer one-to-one sleep support. I have two options to work with me. One is a virtual video session, so kind of face-to-face sleep support, and the other one is asynchronous support. So that's like email, text, voice memo support. So that's helpful for parents that are chronically nap trapped or in different time zones, or just like hard to do that face-to-face. So I offer one-to-one individualized sleep support with no sleep training whatsoever. It's all based in biologically normal infant sleep, attachment, responsiveness, staying close to your baby, all of those wonderful things that we talked about today. So you can find me on social media. I'm on Instagram at nurtured mom, nurtured baby with periods in between each word. And I also have a website where you can find my services and how to reach out to me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing with us
Yes.
today. It's been awesome. I'm really, really excited that we'll have this episode, and I'm sure a lot of people will find it really helpful just to even get some insight into what normal baby sleep
Yeah.
looks like and what it
Yeah.
can Well, those, especially those first few weeks, what it can, and months and years,
Yeah.
what it can look like. So thank you so much. We're going to be recording our Q&A episode next. So everyone listening, if you haven't listened to the Q&A episode, the Q&A episode is going to be about mentally preparing for postpartum. And Gabrielle is going to give us some great info there, I'm sure. So head on over there now. And otherwise, well, no, we'll see you there.